We're here with Arun Gandhi, who is the founder of the Gandhi Worldwide Education Institute. He's also the author of The Legacy of Love and a new book soon to come out in April called The Gift of Anger. So welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be on your show.
So you grew up in South Africa under apartheid, and your grandfather, as a young man, as a young lawyer, also was in South Africa. And both of you experienced various types of violence. So I'm wondering if you could speak to both your experience and your grandfather's experience and how that related to the two of you.
Well, yes, in both cases it was prejudices that really compelled people to hate each other. In my grandfather's case, it was not legalized, it was just a practice that people observed between whites and non-whites. In my case, it was legalized, and it was all perfectly legal, hating each other. And the government also divided the community. Divide and rule was their philosophy, because the whites at that time numbered less than 3 million in South Africa, as against the non-whites who were nearly 30 million. So the only way they could dominate over the rest of the people was to divide them and have them fighting among themselves. So it's these prejudices that are there because of the culture of violence in people, and some people just exploit them and use it for their own benefits.
So in the United States today, with the election of Donald Trump, there is this rise of what they call the alt-right. And I'm wondering how you think that compares with the experience that you had in South Africa.
I think it's just the same, because the whites there were also, in a sense, alt-right. They were just tremendously prejudiced people. And in South Africa, they had the power to legislate all the hate that they wanted. Here, they still don't have that power. We have now given them the power in electing Donald Trump. And I hope that the people will wake up if they do anything untoward and stop them from doing it. Because the agenda of the alt-right all over the world is to foster hate and control through hate and violence. And that is something that we need to stop as quickly as possible.
So the term satyagraha, that means soul force, or a life of nonviolence, how can that be applied to these kind of circumstances where you're in a culture that is promoting a culture of violence, particularly one focused on issues of race and division?
I think we need to focus on that by changing people, by making people realize, a lot of us do have prejudices, but we don't recognize them, or we deny them, and we don't do anything about it. So in a moment of crisis, we express our prejudices and just make the situation worse then. So if we all do that introspection and try to find out our prejudices and get rid of those prejudices, ultimately we will be able to change society there. So this is a call on all of us to work on our prejudices and get rid of those prejudices and unite the community. Unfortunately, what we have done over the years is depended entirely on the law to bring about integration or understanding between different races. And what we have today in the United States with the African American situation is that we have achieved 50% of the goal by making it possible for them to participate in society and be treated as equal and all that. But the other 50% where individually we need to respect each other as human beings, that has not been achieved. And the result is that, the law can only take you half of the way. The other half of the way is where people have to interact with each other and try to bring about that understanding. In this case, nobody, neither the African American side nor the white side, has done anything substantial to bridge the gap between the two. And so we still have that problem festering among us.
So, as you speak about laws, it seems to me that that's kind of a collective social level that we're looking at, but that your response really is about individual responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak to how nonviolence, truth through nonviolence applies to individuals generally and in this situation as well?
Yes, I think when we look at nonviolence and in the pursuit of truth as a philosophy of life, then we are constantly trying to seek what the truth is. What is the purpose of our existence in society? Are we just born by accident, and are we going to just live from birth to death, doing our usual thing, or is there any purpose in our life? And I think that there is a purpose in everybody's life, and it may be a very small thing for us to do, but nevertheless we have to do that. And it's all these small actions that ultimately multiply into a bigger action. So we need to learn to do something with our lives that is concrete, that will make make the society a little better than we found it originally. So that way, I think it empowers individuals to do things, and they don't need to wait on a collective or a large group of people to come together to achieve the goal.
Can you talk a little bit about the framework of a culture of violence versus a culture of nonviolence, and particularly how that plays out in a kind of commercial society like the United States?
Yeah, I think societies everywhere have adopted a materialistic way of life, where everybody wants to make money and get rich and be able to buy all the things that are there in the marketplace. And that makes us greedy and selfish and self-centered. And every one of us is just aiming to become a multimillionaire and buy all the things that we want to. And it's that greed and selfishness that leads to creating a culture of violence. Because once we begin to have possessions, we want security, and security means we want people to protect us. So we need to have police, and then we need to have an army, and we need to keep on spending more and more money on this kind of protection from people who want to come and rob us or whatever. So, it's all kind of interlinked, and it's all comes from the same source of greed and selfishness and all that. And it's only when we get out of that materialistic lifestyle and realize that there is more to life than just buying things or possessing things, that life is about building a society, building a family, a happy family, and so on. Then we will not be so caught up in the culture of violence, and we will start having a culture of nonviolence. Because the culture of nonviolence brings out all the good in human beings. To practice nonviolence, you have to have respect, compassion, understanding, acceptance of each other. And so these are the good qualities in human beings that we foster. But to practice violence, we have to bring out all the worst in human beings, all the hate and the prejudice and the willingness to dehumanize and kill people. And so all the worst aspects come out in a culture of violence, and all the positive aspects come out in a culture of nonviolence. So if our aim is to create a society that we can be proud of and where we can contribute to making this world a better place, then the only way we can do that is through culture of nonviolence, and not by beating up on each other and waging wars and destroying each other.
It sounds very interesting, but in a culture like ours, where it's so deeply embedded with consumerism, it's really hard to even imagine what a world that isn't embedded in consumerism looked like. Like principles of living simply and hard work. What does that look like in a contemporary world?
I think it looks like a very happy society where there's harmony and peace prevailing, where people work with simple things and produce things from what they have for their needs, instead of getting things from other people and exploiting other people to get their resources and so on. So it's kind of simplifying life a little from what we are accustomed to right now, and not wanting, this whole idea of globalization is only for the rich to create markets for their products in other countries. And it's destroying a lot of the other countries in the process there. So we don't want to create that kind of an atmosphere where the rich can exploit the poor and dominate over them. That only breeds more and more violence. What we need is where we can all live in peace and harmony with each other. And that means that the rich need to scale down their lifestyle so that the poor can raise their lifestyle a little, and we have some semblance of equality, economic equality in the world. Today we are made to believe that the stability and security of any nation depends on how strong we are and how powerful our army is. And so we invest a lot of our resources in creating weapons of mass destruction, building stronger armies and all that. Whereas, if all that money could be used to help other nations improve their lifestyle, it would mean so much more. So the stability and security of any nation now depends on the stability and security of the whole world. If we don't work towards creating a stable and secure world, we are never going to be able to secure our corner of the world there. So no nation in the world can have that kind of narrow perspective of just protecting their own nation and forgetting about the world, because every nation is interlinked and interconnected, and what happens to one nation is going to eventually happen to all the nations of the world.
Mm-hmm. It sounds to me like you're talking about a peace that emerges not from the idea of security through force, but security through a set of systems where people take care of each other, and are more localized.
And security through respect, through understanding, through harmony, and so on.
Thank you for being here. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you for being Peace Farmer.
Thank you for having me on the show.